Hello, this is Live with Michelle Van, where we talk about health, wealth, and spirituality. Today, we are here with a powerful twosome, Dr. Crystal Lumpkins and Dr. Israel Groves. Welcome!
Thank you. It's good to be here. Thank you.
We're so
Dr.
glad
Van.
to have you. Today, we are going to talk about a book that they wrote together. It is amazing when we can have Black fathers that are writing for young people. And so this is a father-daughter duo that are doing the darn thing and have decided to go into the realm of writing. Dr. Lumpkins is in Utah and Dr. Groves is in Kansas City. So if you'll just kind of tell us a little bit about who you are and what is going on in y'all's lives.
Thank you. I'll let my dad go first if he wants to.
Okay, I'm a retired pastor, pastor the church for about 25 years, and a Navy veteran, and I've started in journalism in college, but I really didn't intentionally get into this. My daughter and I let her speak for us because we're on the same page about the legacy that her grandfather, my father, left. Amazing life, and he had so many stories. We can't sum it all up in one book, but we can give little bits and pieces of their life. And we thought it was an interesting story, and this is like a metaphor. It's like it's fiction, but it's not a documentary. But we just were happy to be able to tell this story.
Absolutely. So thank you, Dad. I appreciate that. You want us to tell the audience a little bit about ourselves, and this book is so much a part of who we are because, as he mentioned, Ezra, while Ezra's not the name of my grandfather, it just represents so much about biblical promises. And, if you think about the book of Ezra, how that's where the Israel was rebuilding after being in captive in Babylon. And so as me, as a granddaughter of Israel, and my father's name is Israel, my son's name is Israel, I just think about all the aspects of who I am as a Black woman and how I'm a daughter of the King and so many promises, and how just this book has been such an extension of who I am, as far as just being through this process of being liberated. And you mentioned this program being spiritual and holistic. For me, I don't know, Dad, I just felt going through this process, it was very healing for me because to learn more about our history, my history, because this book begins in the 1930s. And a lot of people, to me, don't know about this history. And so I was learning about myself, learning about who I am as an academician and a scientist, a researcher. But God was telling me, and I know maybe my father, hey, we're not just monolithic, right? We are just multifaceted. So some of my colleagues also were surprised that, oh my gosh, you wrote a historical fiction novel, wrote it, and then with your father. I said, absolutely. It took a while, but it has been for me, an eye-opening experience of who I am and, just revealing more about myself.
So your dad said that he was a journalist. You kind of said that you're a researcher, but kind of give us a little bit about what it is that you research.
Yes. Me or him?
So are both of you are researchers?
Oh, I'm sorry, research. So
yeah,
I am a cancer disparities researcher. And so, and that goes back to, again, my experiences as a child and seeing, unfortunately, so many people die disproportionately of cancer within my family. Just my aunt is still living, but she is a breast cancer survivor.
Mhm.
I am in a sorority, and in the ladies that I was initiated with, 21 of us, half of us have
Oh,
been,
wow.
yes, half. And so I was like, Lord, this is overwhelming. And so I just felt God calling me to that space. But with the research, I'll let my father talk more about that. But as a former journalist, broadcast, reporter and producer, a lot of research. Someone I was talking to, I can't remember who it was, another scholar said, you know what? This was at a event last week with some students from historically Black colleges and universities. They were saying, you know what, when as reporters, you all have to do a lot of research. I said, yes, it's not maybe the same type of research, but it is research that goes into, the stories. And into this story we did, or this novel, we had a lot of research that we had to do. But I'll let my father speak to if he wants to talk about his days as a journalist.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, ironically, I didn't know that I would ever get into journalism, but I was an athlete in high school, and I got a scholarship to go down to Central Missouri State University on a track scholarship. And I went down there, and to make some money on the side, I used to write for the newspaper. And then I got interested in writing sports article, and I got to be the first African-American sports editor of the campus newspaper down there. And I started writing, and I ghost wrote for the Kansas City Star and some other papers. And I would always come home and I would tell my daughter about my experiences of writing. And as I began to get into writing articles and meeting news people and everything, I really saw the importance of journalism, of how you can reveal things and how the perspective, it depends on who's writing the article. It's like, but I don't want to get off the track, but.
Yep. And we're gonna stop right there, and we will come right back. This is Live Michelle Van. We are talking to Dr. Groves and Dr. Lumpkins, and we will be right back.
Are you a caregiver in need of healing and registration? Join us for the Healing to Heal Caregiver Retreat on June 23rd to 24th, 2023. On Friday night, get ready to experience healing through the arts with the mesmerizing sound of Kimberly Page and the Millions. Doors open at 6 p.m., giving you the opportunity to explore our fantastic plans and shop for unique items. The concert kicks off at 7 p.m., transporting you to a world of musical release. At 8 p.m., we'll take a break from the concert for a powerful panel discussion. Our experts will delve into the ways the arts can contribute to the healing process. We'll close the night at 10 p.m., leaving you inspired and ready for more. But the healing does not stop.
Oh, we are back, and we are talking to Dr. Lumpkins and Dr. Groves, and we are talking about Ezra, Hobo Jungle King, riding the rails to freedom. Now, we haven't actually got to the book yet. We've been talking about the whole ideal of research and journalism. And I think one of the things that we don't really see a whole lot is we don't really see, Dr. Groves was talking about, I didn't really intend to be a journalist. I didn't really intend to go out and write. I just needed a little change, and I had a gift. So tell us, Dr. Groves, as you began to, ghostwrite, and you began to really see that you had a gift and you were able to use that gift, how has that helped you as a Black man in Kansas? Because we know that's, we are not the majority at all. So how do you see that helping you as you have progressed and as you've come along?
It helped me. This is how it helped me. It helped me get a better perspective of the news field. And you have to remember that I came along at a time when the changes were going on back in 1960. There were not that many African Americans in the news media,
right?
Journalists, newscasters, anchors, and all that. And it was beginning to change when I first started. But what interrupted my career, I was going to be a journalist, but what interrupted my career, I went into the Navy. And then when I went into the Navy, my whole direction got changed, and I got to be a technician, electronic technician. But in the meantime, before I did that, I used to instill in my daughter the importance of journalism, because and you know that the story that comes out on the news, it all depends on who's reporting the story.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know, if one person reports it, it may be a completely different story from another person. And the one thing that really struck me hard was the lack of coverage and the lack of empathy for, you know, our race. And sometimes you see that, and you could look at old news clippings like in the 1930s, 1940s, and you can see the advantage, or you can see the slants on the news, you know.
Yeah, the bias there.
Bias, yeah, you can see that. See that. So that really got me, was that we need representation. I knew, and I didn't know that I was doing this, but I was instilling a lot of the inspiration into my daughter, that she caught the spirit, and she started to researching and doing things like this, but investigating and you know, we don't have enough time to tell you all the things that she went through, but the trials and the learning and the experiments and the things is a wonderful thing, because it was a field that I loved, and I got into another field of, you know, electronics and everything, and I got to be a technician, but my first love was I wanted to be a reporter for the Kansas City Star. That's what I really, and it's sad to say, but I came along too early at that time. When I went up to get a job, they told me, we'll call you back.
And you're still waiting on that phone call, huh?
Yes, I'm still waiting. But that was a time. It was just the timing was wrong, because in the 60s, in the later 60s, that's when the field opened up, and you have reporters, news anchors, and all of these people that's coming in that get an opportunity. But back then, you just didn't have the opportunity. We just didn't have the opportunity.
So as we look at that and lack of opportunity, not necessarily having the grasp of the impact that we could have as Black people in journalism, Dr. Lumpkins, how do you really see, as we are moving, as we are progressing, and we're getting to 2024, do you see a change? You said that, you know, you began in journalism, you began doing that writing piece. Are you seeing changes happen?
You know, I'm seeing incremental changes. I think I'm so thankful to see you and your live with Michelle Van, and how media has evolved, where people can have their own platforms like this. I really appreciate seeing you. And also Nicole Hannah Jones, who has the 1619 Project, you know, as a journalism. And my father would often say, there's power in the pen. I mean, we know that it's more than the pen, but it is the press, and it is these types of platforms that are really making a difference. And so as he mentioned, just very briefly, struggles. I had a lot of struggles. To have hair like this, that wasn't something that you could have. You know, we have the Crown Act and different things that really have allowed Black women and people, Black and brown people, to be represented and tell our stories, because so many times I was sidelined trying to go to the news desk and say, what about these health stories? Or I was a general assignment, they call GA, general assignment reporter, and being sidelined with some of the very critical health stories, or stories that should have been covered, but were not, because of what they thought news should be at that time. And so as we are evolving, and you mentioned as we're getting closer to 2024, I think as I look around and I see there's more representation, there's still a lot of work to do because as I often teach my students, yes, if you have, people that look like me or people that from different racial ethnic backgrounds, different pieces in your public relation pieces or your stories, that's just only a beginning. Are you truly authentically integrating these things into the narrative? And
Yeah,
so when we have people that with these lived experiences are integrated into these narratives, that's when we're really going to see a difference.
absolutely. Absolutely. This is Live with Michelle Van. We are talking to Dr. Groves and Dr. Lumpkins, and we will be right back.
There. On Saturday morning, starting at 9 a.m., join us for a morning of restoration. We're delighted to have Chef Natasha Gandhi Wu asking on Guys Grocery Games and locally at the kitchen, gracing us with her culinary talents.
Discover a range of service providers and vendors offering resources from birth to death, ensuring you have all the support you need.
But remember, space are limited. We only have 50 spots available for the extraordinary event. Don't miss your chance to be a part of it. If you're a caregiver, this retreat is free, designed to honor your dedication. For non-caregivers, the cost is $50 for the entire week. A small investment in your well-being.
Well, let's not forget about the spa. We promise it will be better.
Register now at www.sisterscanwetalk.com and invite a friend to join this incredible journey of healing and restoration.
Don't miss out on this life-changing event. We can't wait to see you there.
Healing to Heal Caregiver Retreat, June 23rd through the 24th, 2023. Register today.
Here we go. Hello, we are live with Michelle Van, and we are here and we are talking to Dr. Groves and Dr. Lumpkins about their new book that is coming out. We know that Father's Day is coming up, and some of you are looking for some authentic Blackness and ways in which to share buying Black. That is the thing that we really push. We really push making sure that we are buying from our community. And so this is a great book that you could buy for your kiddos as we look at Father's Day coming up, and as we look at, what is a gift that we can give to our fathers? What is something that we can really begin to push? Having Black fathers who are doing some phenomenal things. So Dr. Groves is Dr. Lumpkin's father, if you happen to miss that. And so they wrote this book together. Kind of start to tell us, and whoever wants to go first, kind of tell us, how did you get the basis for this idea?
Dad, did you want to start?
Oh, the basis really was my father's storytelling. He would tell stories, and when we would get-togethers, we would get on barbecues and things like that. He would tell stories about him going to California. He traveled to California about 3 times, and going back and forth from California to Texas, and the adventures of how of hobos. And the first thing is that a lot of people don't know what a hobo is.
That part.
and we have to explain that. But there was a time when, believe it or not, back in the 30s and the 40s, there was time when there was a group of people, they weren't bombs, and he was quick to tell you that we weren't bombs. We were trying to go somewhere, they're trying to go to California and are trying to go somewhere else. But the story of riding the rails, getting on the train, that's a whole technique on how you get on the train and how you survive.
Because we see people getting killed trying to do that every day.
Yeah, yes.
Yes. And I don't know if you ever been close to a real train, but the wheels are so big, and it was one young man that had an athletic scholarship, and he was playing. Anyway, he jumped too close to the train, and train cut his foot off, and that's to show you how dangerous the train was, But there's a technique, and people learned the techniques, and you had to learn to survive. You had to learn the techniques.
Yeah.
If you were a hobo, you know, you were an unpaid customer of the trains. You know, you caught the train, but you know better than try to catch the train in the town. You had to catch it outside as it was leaving the town. And usually
Right.
they had techniques where when the train would go up a hill, it would slow down, and there were spots where we call hobo jungles, gatherings of men that was trying to survive. And during the 30s, you know, there was a time when people didn't have jobs, and they had, it was amazing. The whole story about how they survived was amazing. But we used to listen to these stories from my father and her grandfather, and we thought this was a legacy that we didn't want to be lost, and we wanted to tell the story. And this is the best way we could do it.
Absolutely. I think the key to what you just said, legacy. And too often our history goes into the grave, and we don't know, we don't know Papa, we don't know Mama, we don't know,
Yes.
what they did. We sometimes can hear stories, but we don't really, it hasn't been flushed out, and we lose it sometimes because we don't translate those stories into ways in which the next generation can really grasp them. So yes, I can absolutely appreciate the legacy piece of why you all did this. What were you going to say, Dr. Lumpkin?
Oh, I was just going to say that, just hearing as a child, a young child, and hearing some of these stories, my grandfather just really, he was a master storyteller, and he just kept me spellbound. And I would ask my father, "Is this true? Is this for real?" So we were just, talking about him, and he had passed in 2011, and we were in Branson, Missouri, just sitting talking about and reminiscing about my grandfather. And this was at their 50th wedding anniversary, my mom and dad. And so I just remember asking my dad, you know what, Dad, we should really do something with this. And it just evolved from there. It took 7 years, but and we want to make sure we say this is historical fiction, so it's loosely based on my grandfather's life, but many of the things that happened really happened, because some readers have already contacted us and have asked us, did your grandfather really do that? And we said, well, no, but there's a version of that. Right. But I think it's something that just captures that spirit in which he told stories, in which he was able to bring our family really together. And a lot of, if I think about it, a lot of his grandchildren, his children are gifted in these areas. My sister's a worship leader, singing and different types of writing. And so I just think it also empowers young men, because I know there's stories, there's more Black authors out there, but as you see, as we were reading, we didn't see, not saying it's not out there, a lot about this particular time period in which Black teens were really just fearless, jumping on these, it was dangerous, but jumping on these trains, and they were really adept at figuring out what to do in different, like my grandfather, different towns. He was brilliant. I'm not trying to just say it, he was bilingual. He's picked up Spanish, within a couple of months, and was fluent. And so we captured some of these things. And, again, it goes back to when you don't see yourself or the representation, then you don't know the value sometimes, and like you also said about the importance of knowing your history. It is empowering. It is something that my sons, I have two, he has 3 grand boys, and I have 2 boys. And for me to write this, I was like, here, you need to know about this. You're going to read this. You'll be the first to read this. But yeah, so I just tell you, as I'm talking about it, I just learned so much about that time period, and just what my grandfather was able to do, even though it's not widely known, but he did contribute to history, a significant part of history.
And one thing that Crystal was saying about him being bilingual, and a lot of this was by necessity. I'll try to condense it. It's hard to get all this into a short period of time, but try to condense it. They were traveling one time, and they ended up in a little town that had no communication or anything, no industries, anything. They were trying to show you how when you get on a train, you're trying to see the signals of where you're supposed to go.
Right.
Trying to stay awake, and they were trying to go.
Make sure you don't go the wrong place.
Yeah, they were trying to go to El Paso.
Right.
They accidentally fell asleep, and they looked up and looked out, and it was a big sign said EP, EP, and they got off, and it was a little place called Eagle Pass. So they were stranded, and of necessity, they were taken in. Well, it's all in the story. They were taken in by this Hispanic woman, and they lived with them for a while.
Mhm.
By him living with them, they picked up the lingo of being bilingual, with Hispanic. He was.
Get your COVID booster and mammogram during the Healing to Heal Caregivers Retreat. Join us for a rejuvenating event and take care of your health. For more information and registration, visit www.sisterscanwetalk.com. Don't miss the opportunity to prioritize your well-being.
And it was amazing. She's telling you a bit of it, and I'm sorry that we can't tell everything, but
that's okay.
But it was amazing that he could speak. He'd never been to school,
right?
He was in the world with these Hispanic people, and he learned to be fluent in Spanish. And he meet and he and some other Hispanic people would be talking, and you wouldn't know what they were saying, but he had picked it up. But this wasn't a hobby; it was necessity, survival. They were trying to survive, and that's a lot of stories that he told us about how when you got to a little town and you were naturally you were a vagrant because you didn't have a job.
Right.
Well, in order to keep getting arrested and put in jail, I put it. This is nothing. I put on a little what they call
Pea farm. It said us in the book, Pea farm.
Yeah, but that, and a lot of people that have never heard of that, but they had places where they would take travelers, vagrant young men, and put them in a place where they had free labor, and you had to be there until you earned your way out. But the sad thing about it was, and this is a true story, but we it's a fiction, but it's really a true story about how your life was real cheap because, who would miss a person that went away from home and nobody, mother, he didn't know his father, but it was a matter of survival. They had to survive. So this is a story about how they survived, and they survived by being ingenuity, thinking of things.
Yes.
It's like you had to be quick. You had to be quick on your feet.
Quick with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a piece in which we think about the fact that while we have so much technology, and technology is great, our ancestors were doing the darn thing, and they didn't have a computer, they didn't have a cell phone, they sometimes didn't even have an education past maybe sixth or eighth grade.
Yes.
But they were out doing the thing and making and blazing trails for us that we're able to do the things that we're doing today.
Yeah,
that's right.
And I wish we don't have enough time, but I wish I could tell you, my father had learned something. He had learned how to make a whistle with his hands.
Yes, the call is in the book.
And
yes.
And this is I'm telling you the truth. You won't believe this. He could form his hands and sound like a dove,
Yeah.
Woo, 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 woo. And he could make doves answer him. And so, but this was also it was also a signal to his friends. They could be in the woods somewhere and they could hear this and they would know it was him, And so these were things that they thought about, things that they was ingenious things that they thought of. And as you were saying, they didn't have the technology we have today, but they had other kind of skills that
Absolutely.
allowed them to survive, allowed them to survive.
And so I just wanted to, I have the book cover. And so the book cover just, it, just speaks to how I mean, they weren't all on top of the train running, but there is a chapter here that describes how my grandfather had to hang on for dear life, and his cousin in real life was Kami, but in here is Kermie, and how it's almost like a Huckleberry Finn kind of adventure. And so my favorite chapter, I don't know about my others, is when they're doing all this communicating, and I won't give it away, but chapter 11 is called Let My People Go. And so it is just, and some people have already told me they did not appreciate the ending, but hey, it's setting it up for book 2. So anyway,
Well,
it's
I really think about what she mentioned about Huckleberry Finn. You think this is fiction, but a lot of that stuff really happened.
Right.
A lot of people travel the waters, and that was a means of traveling from one place to another place.
Right.
And a lot of adventures, a lot of things happened.
Wasn't like you had cars.
Yeah,
I
when
mean,
cars,
you couldn't get in the, you weren't getting in the car and going anywhere. I mean, as westward expansion was happening, there was railroad, but again, everybody couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
So you had to use all of the means of ways in which to get from point A to point B, and to make sure that your life was surviving. So where can we find the book? Where can we find
Amazon?
The book? Okay.
Amazon.
Yes, you can find it on Amazon. So available. I'm blanking on the ebook. There's ebook, and then also the paperback is available, and we have copies as well, but it's primarily where you can find it.
Okay. And any last things that you want people to know before we close about writing, about history, about legacy, about Black people?
I'll just jump in here and see what you think. I just say the parting words or last words I'll say about just writing. It is definitely a long process. I mean, we went through several iterations of this, and we did have an editor that looked at, just consistencies. But for me, writing with my dad is just, I cannot describe just the opportunity to write with my hero, essentially. I mean, I have always looked up to my father, and he would constantly say, I hope you're not going into journalism because of me, but it is because of you. But it was good. It was good. I was so drawn to it. It was not something that was not just such a part of me, because writing is something that is such an important extension of who I am, whether it's scientific writing, creative writing, writing this novel with my father, because he'll tell you, as a young child, I went with him everywhere. When he preached out of town, my sister's like, oh, I'm good. but I would like try to stick to him like glue and learn from him. He's a phenomenal orator. And so, and to be he just a voracious reader. And so when, and if you're a good reader, I say that you could be a great writer.
Absolutely.
And so I learned so many things, lessons from my father. And so on this Father's Day, I really do honor him and thank him for just being a role model and allowing me to write this significant project with him, and the next one too.
You see, she threw that in there, Dr. Groves, that there's going to be a next one.
Oh yeah, yes. Because we hadn't intended to write this one. This was one thing that just evolved. A thing that evolved, and I feel blessed to be a part of this. Because a lot of things, as you pointed out to us, Michelle, you pointed out to us that a lot of things are lost
Mhm.
Like our grandmothers and all them, they had these recipes, and sometimes
Right.
a woman had a specific recipe, and nobody told. She didn't tell it to anybody, and when they passed away, it was gone, and,
Gone.
and you can't recover that. And so sometimes you look back and say, I wish I had asked them this, or I wish I had asked them that. And so you try to preserve those things, and it's some things that really we could say that would.
Deads and phones.
Yes.
Amen.
Okay.
So we thank you. We appreciate
you.
both of you spending some time with us this afternoon. I think when I saw that you had shared about the fact that you all have wrote together, I really wanted to have this opportunity because I think it's so powerful to have two different generations writing together and sharing about legacy and sharing about history and sharing it from a Black perspective, because we don't get that often. As you shared earlier, you don't see a lot of us in historical fiction, and you don't see us in a lot of these spaces. And so having a book that represents not just your family, but families that look like you and families that look like us, I think are a phenomenal thing. Again, you can find this book, Ezra Hobo Jungle King, Riding the Rails to Freedom, on Amazon. And so we will make sure that link is available so that you can purchase your book. Thank you. We appreciate you. This is Live with Michelle Van, where we talk about health, wealth, and spirituality. And we want you to make sure that you have a phenomenal day. We love you, and God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.